Welcome to episode 5 of the training challenge between my two favorite boomers, Bart and Eelco, where they are competing for 2 tickets to a game of FC Barcelona with one of their kids. Currently, Bart is in a small lead. Last week we were visiting Dubai, so there was no trading. And this week I have a brand new asset, the asset to trade, and to only take one trade on for the week once again. Guys, it's Chainlink.
Wow.
Let's go!
Only allowed to take one trade. Eelco's Ethereum trade is still running. Very curious to see at the end of this week, once again on Sunday when we meet up, what trades you guys both took and what the current account balance is. Make me proud. Show that you guys are still improving, which is definitely clearly visible. And I'll catch you guys on Sunday. Good luck.
Welcome. It is today May the 4th on Sunday, and we've got some interesting price action going on right now actually. Limit order 1 is based on the distribution going over into an accumulation right here, aimed at the sweep of the low. So people are putting the stop losses underneath these kind of lows. That's what I'm targeting. So limit order number 2 is placed in this demand zone, and actually this one is also based on higher time frame levels. Those are the 2 limit orders into the street waiting to be hit.
Hey guys, do you remember the ETH trade I took 3 weeks ago for the challenge? Wanna have a laugh? Here we go. We're sharing my screen now. Can you see what happened, guys? So I stepped in with 1817. That was my entry. Well, it took a long time before it came alive. But here it is. I extended the chart, as you can see. Yeah, but it's kind of fun, right? That's the chart you're looking for.
Another Sunday, which means another weekly recap. Guys, I've heard some rumors here and there that you guys have been performing amazingly well. So Eelco, how did it go last week?
Well, before we go to the last week, can I mention that I still have an ETH trade running?
Flashback.
Hello there. Today it is Tuesday the 29th of April. Eelco, what is Ethereum doing?
Hi guys.
Damn, man.
Yeah, it's in the green. You can see it.
Damn, he's
Yeah.
about to become a millionaire. Or at least he's going to beat me.
I can hear my Lambo already.
Come on, Ethereum, do your thing.
I will share my screen. So as you can see in the bottom, you have the must hold line, and that was my initial runtime for ETH. But as you can see, my entry was at 1817, right? Like I mentioned.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like flatlined, a dead man walking, like Bart also mentioned, until the 8th of May, where it really took off.
Yes.
So here's where I extended the chart just for fun.
You haven't closed any of the position just
No,
yet.
still running.
Ethereum trade, how much is that up?
Yeah, that's the $32.
Why are you deciding to not take profit just yet, and have you extended your take profit target towards that higher level? I'm curious about the level that you decided to set your final take profit target on.
Well, I set my final take profit at 28.63, which was high on the 21st of March.
Now let's zoom in a little bit to those equal highs, that area. I've been giving you guys a very important tip to live by, a rule to live by, I think 1 or 2 episodes ago. Bart, yeah, do you remember the exact rule, Bart?
It's not the highest high, but the high just before that.
Yes. Always try to pick the second to highest high. So if you're looking at the 1 hourly time frame right now, the second to highest high, I believe, would be around $2,730 approximately. Yes, exactly, that one. That's the one high that I would decide to take profit on. I would really lower your target slightly, always to the second to highest high instead of the highest high. And especially if you have those very obvious targets with equal highs or triple equal highs or equal lows, always decide to go with the higher prior to that or the low prior to that.
Yes, I understand. And I will change my take profit.
Perfect. But the trade is running very nice, Eelco. I'm liking what I'm seeing and also the patience that you have with this trade. So that is definitely a good thing. And last week, you were supposed to trade Chainlink. You were very excited for that. You both were. How did that go?
Well, here's mine. Once again, I took the liberty to... No, I didn't extend this one. Because what happened? I saw after our recordings, I immediately saw an opportunity to step in. Okay. As you can see, I took an entry at the 1378. Doesn't really matter, the couple of cents. I took some take profits lines. And as you can see, once it went up overnight in Monday, it hit my stop loss, which was a shame. So I guess I took the wrong liquidity pools, which was a shame because afterwards, as you can see, it went right up.
Let me quickly share my Chainlink chart as well and explain a few things that I think you did pretty well, and a few things that I think you could have done better execution-wise based off the chart.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So Eelco, next to the point that I was making already is that you never ever, once again, a rule to live by, just like the rule of the second to highest high and the second to lowest low, you should never enter any limit orders or execute any trades on weekends in general, but especially not during the weekly transition period, because it's a period with very random volatility, because it's literally the weekly transition. So a lot of positions are being closed, being opened due to a new week starting. So always throughout Sunday night and Monday morning, let price action develop, and starting during the London session on Monday, that's where you slowly but surely can start looking for executions on trades. But next to that mistake that you made, there was another thing that I think you could have done better over here on Chainlink. What I really liked, and you said you marked out the wrong liquidity pool. I actually think that by marking out this low over here as your liquidity pool, you marked out the correct liquidity pool. Because I think there was a lot of liquidity resting actually beneath this low. Why? Due to this push towards the upside. Because this push towards the upside gave us two low probability break of structures over here. These were significant highs to break through, but remember, these two lows over here, they're brothers to those highs, they carried no significance at all. Still, a lot of people probably entered breakout long positions over here on Chainlink, or pullback long positions over here on Chainlink, and there was only one low they could have used to cover their stop loss, which was the low right over here. So therefore, I think there was actually a lot of liquidity resting right there. So that is definitely one thing that you did pretty well. But two things you could have done better. First of all, I don't really understand your stop loss placement. I feel like if this is your liquidity pool, you need to find a vetted low to cover your stop loss. In that case, I personally would have gone for this low right over here. And I think you picked a random low somewhere over here.
That's
where
correct.
You got stopped out, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
You always want to pick a high probability invalidation, which should be the lowest low of an impulse that gives us a valid break of structure, which is exactly what we got over here. So in my opinion, this was the valid low to cover your stop loss. Management-wise for your traders, also one more thing that you could have done better. What we can see over here is the price provides a nice bounce. And we can also see that we have a significant high to break over here, correct?
Yes.
Because this is the high that swept this high and then brought us to this lower low over here compared to this low that brought us to that high. So definitely significant high to break. So once price was testing that high right over here, you should have paid attention. Now it was happening during the London session very early in the morning, so I think you actually were awake. When you were seeing this swing failure of that high over here, it is basically a big sign of weakness by the bulls. Because if bulls were strong, they would have closed this candle above and would have opened and closed the next candle above before bullish continuation. So when price was swing failing that high over here and then seeking some bearish continuation over here, especially after this bearish continuation candle and confirmation candle, I definitely would have moved your stop loss either to break even over here, or I would have tightened your stop loss beneath the low over here to mitigate your risk. Now, by actually choosing the right invalidation, you could have had a very profitable trade after all, because if you would have longed over here upon this valid liquidity sweep and chosen this low as your correct invalidation, if for example second to highest high over here was your target, you would have had a very profitable trade. This is the way you should have eventually executed your trade. So both timing wise you could have done a better job, but also management wise of your trade you also could have done a better job. Anyways, on to the next. Bart, how did your week go with Chainlink?
Yeah, I can show the trade first of all. I went for a 3-prong approach. So this was my original position, one of the 3 that I entered last Sunday on a low time frame, and at the same time I put some slightly longer time frame entries. This one I took seeing a break of structure on a lower time frame, which obviously got stopped out. So where I cheated, it didn't help me really a lot. I think that's where you can get some comfort, Eelco.
Okay, so Bart, let me quickly explain why you got stopped out on that position. This one right over here. Because you said that your trigger to start looking for longs was this break of structure over here. And you could argue that this indeed is a significant high to break, because that high brings us to a lower low over here compared to this low that brought us to that high. But what you forgot to take into account is that this low over here that brings us to that high to break needs to carry significance as well in order to get a high probability break of structure. Especially if you're trading the 5-minute time frame, you would need this kind of confluence. And in order for this low to carry significance, it needs to sweep an important liquidity pool. You marked out this low as your liquidity pool. This low was a significant low, because this is the low that swept the liquidity pool, not this low. What you would have wanted to see is that this low swept into that liquidity pool, then formed a lower high and then a lower low. So theoretically speaking, let's say you have an important liquidity pool over here and price pumps, then you would want to see something like this to get a high probability break of structure. This is the liquidity sweep. Then this low carries significance, brings us to a significant high, because that high brings us to a lower low. Then you have a high probability break of structure. What you were seeing right now is a liquidity pool, pump, and then a medium probability break of structure, because the second low swept into that liquidity pool. But no, we want that first low to already sweep into that liquidity pool. And therefore I feel like that this break of structure that you were waiting for, which is something I really like, because you were at least waiting for a break of structure, was a medium probability break of structure instead of a high probability break of structure. And therefore I feel like you got stopped out on that first position.
So right on that Sunday afternoon, besides that low time frame long that I got kicked out of pretty quickly, I entered 2 more limit orders, number 1 and 2 obviously. One straight underneath this range, and the second one I entered here at this monthly level. Second entry I determined based on 2 factors. I went pretty deep, but I marked out this level as a high time frame level, but also this level I marked out this demand zone over here, sell to buy, or whatever I want to call it, also a more refined demand level. And I thought that was a nice confluence to enter another limit order. And they both got hit, and I merged it into this one. And I took yesterday around 60 to 70% take profit at this level. And I've got a final TP over here. And also I feel that this move is getting extended a bit too much. And at a certain point of time, people are opening all the time long orders and the open interest is rising, and I'm expecting some kind of flush. My profit is gone as well, so I want to secure some profits.
The only thing that really matters is that you guys are improving and that you guys are making steps towards a profitable trader. And that first position, Bart, was a low probability position. I wouldn't say a gamble, because I kind of like the way that you waited for a break of structure. But do you agree with me that you were taking a low probability position in a low probability environment?
Obviously, and I mean, but I think we have to stress, we have to see the fact as well that we're both, in a day job, and I thought, there was a voice in the back of my head which said, if I can take this trade now on a Sunday, then I'm done for the week. But it felt like almost like gambling, and I knew that at the time I was taking the trade.
Yeah, and by zooming out a little bit more and looking at a higher time frame picture, you were creating so much more ease for yourself, and you simply set 2 limit orders, chose the perfect invalidation, because that is the invalidation that I was also explaining to Eelco, and you simply let the odds and the probabilities play out throughout the entire week, and you ended up with a very profitable trade. So even though you really bended the rules, I would say, I am fine with that if you guys do that every now and then, if it's for the right reason. And in this case, it was for the perfect reason, because I feel like these are the kind of positions that can make it like click for the both of you, if you know what I mean.
And I had the stop loss here as well, because I thought if it starts to enter here this sort of liquidity curve, then it cascades down very quickly. So how you just mentioned it, I think there was a little bit of luck, but my reasoning as well was as soon as it starts going lower than here, this accumulation here failed, and it is going for all this liquidity, and then I'm fucked basically. So that's why I'm also placed it here.
I feel like both of your accounts are in massive profits, which is crazy to me because I really didn't expect that a few weeks into the challenge. The game is on. The both of you are right now. We're making massive steps together in the right direction. Exactly, it's all about consistency in the end. But that's another week of my two favorite boomers competing with each other for 2 tickets to a game of FC Barcelona. Both of the accounts are up big time right now. The game is on, the tensions are rising, and I can't wait to see what the next episode and the next week will bring.